separate this from that. Nice. So you can see the shades of light. So you see that dark in that middle?
Yep.
So that this melt has none of that in there. So this will stay shelf stable. Like I want to test it. I want you to cut this first slab and leave it in your car, leave it out in the heat, and it won't change color over time.
It'll stay just like
It's
that.
what it's AKA. You can see the different liquidity. This one's more stable.
Yeah.
This is all the TCA in here. So we got a very controlled 1-inch circumference flow, and that's going to land right on that circle every single time. As long as you don't get a slip or blow out the back by missing the automation. So you got every control here. 8 psi, you'll see it go and try to find 8 psi, which is the conversion is 8 psi from the pump converts to 1 pfsi, pounds of force applied to your bag. And we identified that about 11 pfsi, as long as you stay under there, that's your slipping point. So what we do is we play the L, 1 and 2, our safe zone, to prevent that slipping from happening, applying too much pressure. So we're sensitive. We're actually, you could be too sensitive with the automation, even with the 110 cylinder, and actually cause plate decarboxylation depending on the temperature that you're pressing it.
Right.
So like,
what's your preferred temp? I mean, it's always different depending on what your hash is.
if you're going for scalability, you're going to want to do the quick and warm. It mathematically makes sense. You're going to be pressing 200 grams every 3 minutes instead of 200 grams every 10 minutes with the slow and low. So
But both methods work, and we have recipes for both as well.
Right, yeah.
I was trained under the 205 to 220 range.
Here's
You know,
the
there's a
slow
lot of
and
people
low
that want to do
example.
160 to 180. Exactly. So you just are elongating your times in between each stage
That's
and
the
ramping your
example.
pressure differently.
This was a press that we programmed specifically for 200 grams in the pouches. So the thicker the bag is, right, we utilize the heat to help us melt off the layers of resin, converting into rosin and filtering through your bag throughout this cycle time to slowly let that melt. And then once it gets past that safe zone of all the resin liquefying into rosin, it is now safe to apply pressure and prevent slipping or blowouts.
These recipes were originally, when I got with him on the early demo days, we started with the hand pump and marking times and pressures and temperatures at that time. Because I think a lot of us started with the hand pump generation. Yeah. So being able to
started get dying down.
have that sensitivity built into this size of machine is really nice.
Yeah, that's what allowed it to convert from flour. It was designed specifically to flour to try to bypass washing. Because as an owner operator, I was trying to avoid it.
Yeah,
you know, it's labor intensive.
Yeah.
So we tried it all, and it does come back around on that spreadsheet. Will tell us black and white. Hash rosin is the way to go, and you get a clean, you get a wash, you get a bathe through your resin. So
it's a more consistent, more sellable product.
Yeah, and no trimming, no drying from the cultivate. There's so many more benefits. That is the way to do it, no matter what. So, with that being said, we had the throughput capacity as this presses a 1/4 pound of flour, 1 ounce per bag, 4 bags, and it's able to press flour into flour rosin that is very equivalent to some good hash.
Okay.
Post melt separation, you can literally not identify the two differently because you got the first melt that flows all off of your THCAs and your lighter melting terpenes and flavonoids first, and then you could actually separate it or let that puddle build up, and then once it does turn dark, eventually at the end of the press, as your second press, you separate that and you get that little dark puddle, but it's separated. So that oil will stay more shelf stable. So if that is flour rosin, this first smell, you won't identify the difference. We mastered things like that of understanding all the cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids and their melting points, and at flour and how it works from flour, because that's the starting point of hash rosin. So we focused on that first and dialed that down and figured it out. And once we were making style rosin with flour back in 2017, now it allowed us to evolve into developing this thing for hash rosin, which what I needed to do is recreate the program from the flour program to this program. Second thing we did is we recalibrated the DBA pumps. We take those apart, remove the first stage, the high-speed stage. Now we're able to go that slow stage. Another third thing, we added the liquefy stage. What is the liquefy stage? It's this. You come here, you start your program, and it does that movement. That movement is 0 psi. It's applying no pressure to the bag.
Snugging up against the pouches
from when you put it in.
Gotcha. So it's kind of warming up the hash.
With that, you this is plate movement. So this is where you calibrate that. You press start plate height, it's going to come to 100 and come down to here. That's what you calibrate the thickness, whether it's 30, 40, 50 gram of the bag, and it's calibrated. Therefore, you insert it and it's snug, so that
will it automatically sense it, or do you tell it when it's touching the bag?
you're doing it this way. So you
Set it up
calibrate
as
that
calibration.
number specifically. You insert that into the stop right there.
So at 100, you have a certain set point. If you wanted to have, if you're a thicker pouch, you would run less movement.
Go at 90 right there and make it like I'll show you, like right there, and then we'll go to 115 and bring it down quite lower. And it'll probably we'll probably fit it to this pouch right here. It's nice and snug. So therefore, you know where the top plate is touching the top layer of resin. Therefore, when you put it in, it already is kind of pre-melting for you. You start the program, it does that initial jolt. So we're guaranteed safe there, because I mean you can't overdo a jolt, right, with this version of the program. So you're going to come a lot closer to that. You can add too much jolt, but this is where you calibrate it to prevent that, or you always do it a little bit short to guarantee prevent it, because still stage 1 is now dialed down so well with this machine. After 6 years of development, we got it down to 1 pound PFSI, or 8 PSI on here. So this is where it came from, this is how it developed, this is why it's so unique and used for scaling with these big corporation companies and stuff, and they're leaning towards a direction that could scale it effortlessly and more efficiently and streamlined. So
Honestly, if you just show it to me,
let's rock it.
Yeah, let's rock it.
I'm just gonna, so I stop messing with those flat ones, I'm just gonna leave them open for this test. We're good there, nice and snug. That 5 won't do any harm. And we set this at 4, I thought, well, that was the other recipe. I'm just gonna set it at 4 just to be even safer.
what you said, what's 4?
I just pulled it back at 1,000th of a second.
That's the bump, or
Yeah.
What happens if we get to the end of our hash and we only have like one more bag of 40?
Yeah, you keep a bag that's in there that you haven't opened up, and we call that a dummy bag. And you just throw that on the backside. You could press 2 bags or 4 bags, but you can't really press 1 unless you have a dummy bag. One that's already been pressed, a pouch.
Oh, okay.
For
so
the thickness, to balance the thickness.
Gotcha.
At the same time.
And so you could do 1, yeah. And you could also do rectangle bags here. You fold this pouch over 1 more time, and it creates a rectangle here. In the same insert, same everything.
So you would split the hash into 4 bags, but just less in each bag.
Correct.
With a rectangle.
There'll be a smaller
Gotcha.
bag because it's a rectangle 3x6 bag. You can put it
Gotcha.
right here, no problem.
Same bag, just change
No,
the way you're folding it.
Say you got like
the
40 grams
rectangle
left, you can
bag.
do like 220s.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm talking about a different bag
Oh, I
completely.
see.
The rectangle ones, you could use those in the same pouch, same flow control.
Okay.
You just have a longer distance here, which that's what we have this trapezoid for, because this is basically a rectangle bag. We have this little tip here and this tip here, which is more hash.
Gotcha.
We're just filling each space of it. So I think, boom, boom. Just because I played with settings, I'm always going to start one. We got our jolt, and then good. We're now going to find that 14 psi. We run that. Once it gets down, it'll click us over because we're at temp 209. Yeah, see that fold right there?
Yep.
That's what you want to prevent. I'm gonna come over here and make sure that's tight. See,
That's
now,
nice and
now
pushed
it's
in
good. Yeah. And we're gonna go here, make sure it's way in the back. Right over here, bada bing.
This is what I was showing him. This is your little safety net. You literally just slide this right here.
You get those already pre-cut?
No, I just cut this sheet real quick. And then right there. So just in case you do have any leaks, comes right under parchment, take it right out.
Slit.
No peanut.
But yeah, 160, I doubt to see it.
Yeah, don't see it. I mean, this is like I said.
200 is like you're watching for it, and then that's where you're adjusting from there. So it's almost like when you do the tongs, you come back and do that.
I have to set them in before the tongues, because if you set these in before after the tongue, you might lose them a little. And I always like to give the final look. Stick your head up in there and make sure all those are nice and center around that nipple, all the way down here. Look up here.
So should they be touching each other? Yeah, not necessarily. You should see them unite, kind of.
Yeah, right there is perfect.
Yeah, not that one I didn't.
See how you can see that?
One's got a little gap. I don't know, you tell me if that's hair.
They don't have to be perfect.
They don't have to be perfect,
No.
but it's more along
You're
the
doing to
line
see
of
if it overthrows.
this way.
I see.
All right, go ahead and do 2-hand activation. Go ahead and press the screen with one hand. Hit the switch up and let go of both. first is so sensitive. Like, that's why we have this at 10. It's almost unnecessary, but it's still nice.
But you rather have that safety.
Go one a little before it adds pressure, rather than here to here. It's going here, here, then here.
You rather take those.
So where's
baby
show me
steps.
where the pressure is right now. Oh, right here. We're at 16. So it goes over slightly and then bow right back to 16. Once it goes under, it'll re-regulate it up. 14, back to 17. Okay, we're gonna be doing some post-melt separation action here. There it goes. Look at that. There's nothing like that first puddle. Watch. We're gonna get that a little bit bigger. Watch. There's nothing like that melt right there.
A little bit more.
Let this one grow until it starts to see a slight flow difference.
Yeah, like a little bit of flow difference or color.
Both. The flow and then it shows, see how then it shows the color? See how that white line went around that loop? You'll see the color change. See, you're getting one even melt. What that tells me is that your ice water, whoever sieved that hash, did very well. Touche. See, because I'm seeing a consistency. I'm seeing a consistency from the middle to now. See that darker, slightly? I'm going to leave that last little bit. Yeah, good quality is always like this, where it's more even. That's what I'm saying. This is the analytics of it.
Yeah. And so if you really doesn't, if you're seeing it like this to where you're not really seeing a big taper off in color, you can literally slap another piece of parchment paper over it.
You should do it to this.
I will. The Eli slide.
Yeah, cut off that first melt though.
Yeah, let me see how you do that.
See this? There's nothing like this circle right here. I'm running out of room. You got another parchment? Slide it under there, and I'm just gonna slide it under it. Yeah, perfect. Now once it gets there, we're gonna pull this out of the way. Ooh, do you open it? No, that's fine. I mean, you could to be safe. But you're not gonna get as big as the puddle here. So that now we're at maximum pressure. Go ahead and push that parchment forward. A little more. Now separate this from that. So you can see the shades of light. So you see that dark in that middle?
Yep.
So that this melt has none of that in there. So this will stay shelf stable. Like I want to test it. I want you to cut this first slab and leave it in your car, leave it out in the heat, and it won't change color over time.
It'll stay just like that.
You can see the different liquidity. This one's more stable.
Yeah.
This is all the TCA in here.
You're dispersing the heat out of it, getting all the high spots out of it,
Spreading it out.
Yeah.
allowing it to cool.
It's gonna be like translucent when you
Yep.
for a little while.
Most people aren't pulling when they're looking at the heads. They're letting it go full turn. So they're worried about
Rolling pin, huh?
Yeah, rolling pin. And then just let that cool for a minute and we'll pull it up and I'll show you guys the slabs.
Okay, sweet.
Slabs of rosin.
All fresh press. So now you can just take your hot butter knife, your dab tool or whatever, and score it into gram size scores and just plop it in the jars.
Oh yeah.
Fresh press.
Slick. I normally don't do fresh press just because I have to rely
It's
on my
really pretty. It's really pretty to look at, but I feel the terpenes are really trapped inside of it before it's not off gas at all.
It's just hard to keep it fresh press from me to the distributor. They got to keep
This
it
210. This 210 quick warm.
That's different.
2-3
that'll
weeks
stay-
of glass.
Oh, that'll stay like
Yeah,
that.
look at this.
170, 180. You're gonna butter within a couple days.
It's different.
Yeah, that's the cream cake.
This is all already solid here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming out today, man. You guys
Yeah,
are all
absolutely.
about the cool shit. Enjoyed that.
This on the cold freezer for a second.
Appreciate that.
And fresh press really gives you an idea of how, like, you can see your clarity, how much THCA you're looking at inside there, by how cloudy it's getting.
That looks pretty.
Quarter-pound slab.
Yeah, that is. So you basically saw every method. Perfect.
I usually only try to make the mistake once.
You did. You know exactly what you're doing. Look how that it's flowing. That's exactly how it's designed right there. Perfect. It's literally a flawless flow.
Yeah. Saying you got it equivalently.
Yeah, that's pretty goddamn slick, man. I like that. And what's that now?
Which one?
Oh, that's
Oh,
just,
that's the. So yeah, look at the difference. This is that stuff on the last tape. This is that nucleated stuff he was talking about. You see how it's clear?
Yeah.
You can see it.
so so that was when you ramped up the pressure all the way to 2000?
Yeah, and removed the other terpenes and flavonoids.
Gotcha.
This is the THCVs and the higher melting terpenes.
I see.
And it should be, yeah, it's still solid too, bro. This is fire.
Get it into a smaller space because it'll just end up snapping if you like put it in the cold. Just whatever size bag you want to put it in. You can put it in a turkey bag, or if you want to seal it in a Ziploc, or put it in a vac seal.
Yeah. See, I think that's in my back.
Put it in a vac seal, and then keep it cold, and it'll stop it from nucleating. But at the quick and warm recipe, like I was saying, at the 205 to 215, this will last a lot longer. It's trapping and tempering the hash. And by cooling it, by tempering and cooling it and spreading it, it kind of locks it into its own glass.
Okay.
Where a lot of people are seeing, like you said, it's hard to get fresh pests to the market because by the market gets it, it's buttered already in the jar.
Yeah, because only you got to keep it and you got to keep it cold.
Keep it cold.
And you got to rely on the distributor to have a freezer truck to deliver
half
to the
of
dispensary.
99.9% of them don't.
Then you got to rely on the dispensary to
To
keep
have
it
it
in
cold.
the freezer.
Right.
And then you got to rely on the customer to keep it in the freezer.
Right. Not open it while it's cold.
And so you went through all that shit, and then they're like, "Hey, this stuff buttered up." I'm like,
Everything butters eventually.